If you struggle to expand your empire without losing half of it in the process, this guide is going to be for you. Thanks to Creative Assembly for sponsoring this video. It's part of a little series to help you level up your gameplay, with other parts coming from my fellow Total War YouTubers, Serious Trivia, who's done a guide on kingdom management and economy, and Loremaster of Sotek, who's done a guide on diplomacy, and of course some lore as well. I'll link those videos at the end. Let's go. So at the start of any campaign, you're going to have an obvious enemy to take out, and in the case of Kislev and Katerin, that's the Vanaheimlings. From there, you'll need to look at the enemies around you, whether they're going to be friendly, like these two Empire factions will be, and maybe this Kislev faction as well, but we can see that we're already at war with another Kislev faction, the Ropsman clan, so where we're going to expand to is fairly obvious. Now, in most campaigns, your first enemy will often give you the first province that you need, but in the case of Kislev, the city of Kislev itself is a province, so when you take out the Vanaheimlings, you're left with a broken province, and we want to fix that as quickly as possible. So we can see the Ropsman clan and 4 settlements in their territory. And the 3 settlements on the right are the 3 that go with the one we've taken off the Vanaheimlings. That'll give us our Eastern Oblast province, with the city in the north, Prague, being the same as Kislev as just a single province city. So, from our 2-settlement kingdom at the moment, how do we decide where to go? We've got a whole bunch of options we could attack. Which one do we go for first? Well, the obvious answer here is Prague, as it is a single province city. It's pretty easy to manage and build up economy-wise, and is easily defendable as a walled city. So the ideal first choice is Prague that we want to take. From there, we can then move east and take all of the remaining settlements of that Eastern Oblast. But that's not the only option. We could go the other way, and we could go out east first, and then make our way west and end up at Prague, so take that last. Whichever way you choose to go, east or west first, it doesn't really matter because the end result is the same. However, there are some factors which will make one or the other more likely to be the better option. So we've got our Katerin army ready to go here. They're ready to march on the next bit of territory that we want to conquer. Ideally, as I say, I'd like to go to Prague, but there's a few little checks I need to do first, because who knows what's out there in the fog of war. For all I know, the enemy has got an army here, they're going to bring it down to here, or from up here, they'll bring it down. From over in the east, they'll bring that over and start trying to take my settlement that I took off the Vanaheimlings, and that is not acceptable. If I just rush away and leave my territory undefended, there's a good chance I'm going to end up in this situation with the enemy armies taking some of my land off me, and that is counterproductive to the plan of trying to expand your empire, right? So how can we know when and where the enemy might attack us? Well, this is where the power of scouting comes into play, because information is key, my friend. Using a hero to scout around and find out where the enemy armies are positioned is essential to intelligent army movement. Now in this case, I can see there's nothing at Igrov and only a small army at Volksgrad. Not sure about Fort Jakova yet, but I'm pretty confident they're going to have a large army somewhere in their kingdom. For now, I'm going to start to move towards Prague, assuming that the army is there. I'm going to check Fort Jakova on the next turn with my hero, and if I need to run back to defend Igrov, I will. But hold up, who's this? A large Ropsman army approaches. That's the big army I was looking for, and it looks like they're coming towards Kislev. But there's a chance they might go after my other settlement of Gerslev. Now, if we look at Kislev, we can see it's got a fairly substantial garrison, and it is a big city, so it's got walls. We've got all these units to help keep it safe. Looking at that 10-unit garrison compared to the enemy's 14-unit army, I'm pretty confident we can defend against them as long as they don't starve us out for a while, which they can't really because I've got the Katerin army right there. So Kislev can look after itself, but Gerslev can't. And to get there, the enemy army will need to go over this bridge, or they'll need to go through the river, which will take way more time. So they'll probably go for the bridge. Now, I'm going to defend the bridge, and we're going to use the all-powerful ambush stance, which is honestly a great stance to use in many situations all throughout a campaign. You will need 25% of your movement range left to be able to go into ambush stance, so be aware of that. Now, pro tip on ambushes here, notice when I hover over the open ground, it says ambush success chance 40%, but when I hover over the trees, it goes up to 70%. Because, believe it or not, it's easier to hide an army in a whole bunch of trees than out in an open field. So we'll position ourselves slightly in the trees to get that extra ambush chance, go into ambush stance, and hope for the best. If the enemy army comes this way, there's a good chance they're going to go through our red circle, and we're going to catch them in an ambush. If they go and attack Kislev, no worries, like I say, it can look after itself. In we go to the next turn, and what do you know, we've got the ambush on the Ropsman clan army. And ambush battles are an absolutely fantastic way to decimate enemy armies without them really fighting back. If you're predicted to win it with a close victory or decisive victory, whatever, they will try and make a break for the escape point to save as many of their units as they can. This is the opportunity to stand in front of them, slow them down, blast them to crap with missiles if you've got them, and they will minimally fight back only when you've really stopped them. But usually it's pretty easy to do a lot of damage to them before they get any done to you. But do beware, if the auto-resolve says that the enemy is going to win it, like with a close defeat for you, then there's a good chance they'll actually just try and fight you and won't try to escape at all, and they'll just run straight at you. So position your units wisely. Obviously don't leave archers really exposed if there's a chance that the enemy is just going to run at them from the start of the ambush battle. But now that we've got the large enemy army absolutely battered and we're still in good health, we're free to push on to try and take Prague and then execute our expansion plan, and they won't have much to resist us with, at least until they've recruited some more units in a few turns. So onwards to Prague. As predicted, the enemy is mustering some new forces, recruiting some new units, and they're doing it in Prague, which makes life a little bit harder for us, so we're going to jump on besieging them quickly because that'll stop their recruitment. Now, we can't attack them straight away because we don't have any siege equipment, but that's fine. It gives us time to maybe wear them down a little bit, or they might sally out and try to fight us in the open field, which I'm fine with. If they do that, we should be able to win this. They've got some tough units, but we should have the tools to beat them down. A few turns on, they decided not to sally out, so we've worn them down in their settlement. I put some heroes in my army, and we're able to take Prague with a Pyrrhic victory, not losing too much. Now, to answer another question that I occasionally get from time to time, when should I occupy, when should I sack, when should I raise, how do I know which one to do with each different settlement? Well, in the case of Prague, as I mentioned, it is a single city province, so it's going to be an occupy for this one. If instability doesn't seem like it'll be a big problem and you're not going to have problems with public order and rebellion, then looting and occupying can give you a little extra cash, which is what we're going to do here because Prague is pretty easy to manage, so we're not too worried about rebellions. Sacking is generally worth it if it's for a large amount of money. You may want to do this and then raise the settlement afterwards, or do this and then occupy the settlement afterwards. And raising a settlement is just a good way to hurt the enemy faction if it's a piece of land you don't want yourself. So we're going to loot and occupy, which comes with a slight risk of leading to rebellion, but that's not a huge issue for us. Very often rebellions can be good in a way because you can farm those rebellion armies and get some XP from them, which is a bit of a tactic in itself. So overall, we've made two big steps here. Not only have we taken Prague from the enemy and taken it for ourselves, but we've also taken out their large army. I'm going to allow my army some time to replenish, and then we're going to move on to the next phase of the plan, which means conquering those last three settlements in the Eastern Oblast. But the world of Total War is unpredictable, and as I scout around trying to gather more information for my next moves of my army, a rather big problem arises, throwing a monkey wrench into my plans. The Bear Sunling Norskans are besieging the settlement I wanted to take, as I need it to complete the Eastern Oblast province. And that's going to put me in two active wars with nearby neighbors, and that can be more difficult to manage with only one army. So on to the next turn, we see the Bear Sunling have taken Volksgrad, and now there's a big old stack right in front of me, which is in pretty good health, and there's another half stack just over by the river as well. So what's the play here? Where should we move to? We could go forward towards Volksgrad, we could go back and just sit in Prague and hide, or we could try and fight these Bear Sunling armies. Now if we stay stood here, there's a good chance that both of these armies are going to converge on my army, and I'll be stuck in a 2v1, very outnumbered, and probably end up with my army wiped out. Or those two armies will go after Prague, and I may not be able to repel their attack. So we're going to take away their opportunity to do either of those things to me by simply attacking them first while they're divided. We'll go after the bigger army as we can reach it. It's going to do a runner, but we can still reach it, and we're going to fight it and hopefully take it out. The army isn't too tough, it's mostly marauders, so if we can get this done, it'll take away the big threat of the Bear Sunlings, and they'll only be left with a half stack, which won't be able to do too much, especially as we're going to fight this so we can end up with our army in the best condition, because auto-resolve might take a little bit more of your health than you really want and leave you pretty beaten up at the end. So we'll fight this, it's not too tough, we end up pretty well, half health for most things, perfectly capable of taking on that remaining Bear Sunling force if necessary. And if they don't attack us, we'll be free to march on Volksgrad, which we're right next to now. Come the next turn, Volksgrad is ready to be taken because the enemy army has simply gone back north and seemingly isn't going to bother us. So finally, we can continue on with the plan of trying to take this province, and capturing this will give us 2 of the 4 settlements we need to finish the province off. And it's a pretty easy battle as this place was just taken. I'm going to fight this though, otherwise I'm going to lose my cavalry, which is not ideal. We're going to occupy this though, and that puts us halfway to our goal of getting that eastern oblast. But now we have the issue that we need to move our army south to take the other settlements, but our enemies are going to come from the north, and we won't be able to defend Volksgrad. So we're going to use some scouting again, and we can see that the enemy army is far up north. They're mustering, they're recruiting, they're trying to build a big army to come back down and get us. So we have to act fast, and we're going to get moving to start trying to take our next settlement, Igrov. And lucky for us, the Ropsman clan haven't really built up another army yet to defend this, so it's a pretty easy take of Igrov. I did recruit some ogres, which I'm apparently going to lose, so I'm going to have to fight this so I don't lose my ogres. But again, it's another pretty easy victory that gets us another step closer to acquiring this province. As I start moving on to the final settlement I need, I'm always keeping an eye on this Bear Sunling army. If it makes any moves down north, I'm going to start maybe having to head back or looking for other options to defend. We move on though to the final settlement we need in Fort Jakova. Luckily, it's only the garrison here, so another easy take for us without us losing too much. But again, we're apparently going to lose our ogres, but what the hell, we're going to auto-resolve this one, and that will give us our final settlement in this province, which means we now have the Eastern Oblast, which gives us 3 provinces in total with the 2 major Kislev cities. So we've executed our plan, we've got it done. We had a few hiccups along the way, but we overcame them, allowing us to expand our empire without taking any back steps. So from everything you've learned in this video so far, you should be able to see where we're going to go next. It's kind of a similar plan. My main army is down here in Fort Jakova, but the enemy's big army is up here in the north. So we either want to come up here and try to take out their big army, which would leave the rest of their settlements pretty much defenseless, and that would be an easy take of that province as well. Or we could take advantage of the knowledge that the enemy army is way up north, and we can go straight for these settlements which we know aren't going to be well defended. So again, we've got 2 options on how to approach this. The other thing to think about is where this big army is going to go. It may come down and try to take some of our other settlements. It may take Volksgrad, it may go after Prague. Again, if we lose one of those, it's going to be a backstep, and we don't want that. So taking out the army might be the best first step. However, in this case, we've got an ogre camp in the Fort Jakova region, which we need to get rid of. It'll mess with our public order. We don't want to leave it there. So we're going to get rid of that, which puts us kind of going north towards the Bear Sunling's southern lands. So we're just going to go that way instead and take the risk that the big army may go after some of our settlements. So again, we ready ourselves to invade the enemy territory. We're going to try to sweep through the enemy settlements to take one after the other without having to backpedal on ourselves anywhere. But alas, with a bit of scouting, we find that the big Bear Sunling army is coming for us. It's still not the most dangerous army of marauders and such, but it could have been a big problem if I had not a few turns ago built this building, the Palisade, the building that gives you extra units to your garrison. These things are honestly invaluable when you have kind of frontline settlements that are at risk of being attacked. So with that, we've got a 15-unit garrison, but we're also just going to recruit an extra lord, just because that's some extra manpower there to fight the enemy off, and he can do a good bit of work. We could also recruit some units because they might not attack this turn, but I'm not going to do that in this case because I'm not too worried. If they straight up attack us, we're not really in danger of losing because of the defensive settlement. But oh, what's this? It's the remainder of the Ropsman clan who have come back to try and take something off us, but they don't really have enough left. So it's a decisive victory and also the extinction of the Ropsman clan. That's the end of them. We could have chased them off and tried to finish them off, but there wasn't really much point. We see the Bear Sunling army has moved down now, and on the next turn they are indeed going to besiege our precious Volksgrad. So we have to act now, otherwise we're going to lose it. There's another half stack coming. We've got to do something. I've just taken one of their settlements off them, but we're going to have to abandon the initial plan of trying to sweep through all their settlements in one go because we've got to go and defend. Now, I could force march here and try to get as close to the enemy armies as possible, which would put me around here, but you see there's a big risk in doing that because the enemy army might decide to stop besieging, come and attack my army, their other army will come as well, I'll be in a 2-on-1, I'll be in force march so I won't be able to escape, and I will probably lose my entire army. So I'm only going to move up a little bit to be safe. On to the next turn though, and what do you know, the Bear Sunlings are going to attack Volksgrad, but lucky for us, we can get a Pyrrhic victory with auto-resolve. which is absolutely huge for us because not only do we defend the settlement and not lose it, we are going to lose some of the units, but they're only garrison units, they'll respawn anyway, but we're going to wipe out both of the enemy armies here, which leaves us absolute free reign to just ruin the rest of their kingdom and take that province. Because they've got no armies left to defend, it's only garrisons that we have to deal with, and they're pretty crappy and pretty easy, so we're just going to sweep through as the plan originally intended and take ourselves our 4th province, all within the space of 30 turns. So we've got 2 major Kislev cities, 2 full provinces. That is a lot to work with moving forward with the rest of the campaign. You'll probably want to sit back now and build up these provinces, build up the economies, make more money with them. You don't want to expand too much too quickly. This is a pretty quick expansion, so this is probably about the limit. You may want to go and finish off the bear settlings in the north there, but that's where raised settlement's going to come in handy, and you can just wipe them off the face of the map whilst building up your kingdom. And in the case of the Catering campaign, of course, you'll confederate other Kislev factions later, so your kingdom will expand that way, so you can reunite the motherland. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.